Okay, everybody, that is now my second attempt at this video. The first live stream, the sound went dead for some reason. Sorry about that. Anybody still watching on this link, sorry about that. I will start over again. Well, this is the Project Cedrus Universal Carbon Mast. It is, in my opinion, probably the safest mast out on the market, and is also a very unique thing, as you have one mast that will fit on most of the foils available on the market today. It comes in multiple different sizes. That's the customizability. When you order the mast from Kyle, he can give you basically in 5 centimeter increments the choice of your length. I chose to test the 85 centimeter mast. Once you add on the adapter to it, obviously it's a slightly bit taller. So in total, if we're measuring from the bottom of the plate to the top, including the adapters, this mast is actually 89 centimeters. So it's very close to a 90 centimeter mast. So when I'm comparing weights and stiffness and so on, I compared it to other 90 centimeter masts, just to be fair, but comparing it directly to 82 centimeter, 75 centimeter masts is not really the point. So the question that has been asked by a lot of people is performance. Does it affect the performance? Because it is a slightly thicker profile. It is a 19 millimeter thick profile. You see that on the cam here. That's very similar to the thick Axis aluminum mast. The Indiana aluminum mast is essentially a very similar mast thickness to that. A small misconception around is that the mast thickness really affects the speed of a foil. It does to a point, but the actual so-called Coanda effect, where the resistance essentially to the water doesn't actually scale up exponentially like most people believe. Yes, with a little bit more resistance, you are reduced in speed on the thickness of the profile, but there are a lot of other factors on the foil which drag more, which will affect the speed or not. So for normal use cases, using this with larger foils, surf foiling, wing foiling, wind foiling, kite foiling with larger foils like the Moses Onda, the 633 or the 790, the 950, you don't notice a big speed difference between this and a thinner carbon mast. What you really do notice is, because of the actual rigidity of this mast, you gain more control. And here's what makes this mast really special. This mast basically being 90 centimeters long in total, compared to, for example, the 91 Moses kite mast, is a lot stiffer and a lot less ventilation prone. So I can push it very hard, and I can go faster on this than I can on the standard carbon mast that I have. And also, it is also stiffer, especially along sort of the flexional axis. So essentially, this is here. If I have the glider mounted on here, and I'm twerking down on the wings. Most aluminum masts, even in that thickness, that is sort of their weakest axis of flex. They're sort of along this flexional axis. That's where they bend the most. Torsion is always really good on the really thick aluminum masts, but that flexion is actually not equally as stiff and so on. Whereas on this mast, it is very stiff on that flexional axis. Most people have looked at this on the beach, they've been bending on it, and they've realized, wow, that's super stiff compared to any of the masts they've tried. And you really notice that on the water, especially when you're heeled over very hard, you gain a lot of control. And the profile is very good. I had 0 ventilation issues with this. Maybe kiting, winging, stand-up paddle, foiling, surf foiling. No matter how hard I pushed it and how hard I tried to force a ventilation, it did not happen. So on a performance side, you would only really notice a little bit less speed if you actually had foils that could take advantage of that. I noticed that it was slightly slower when I was using very high performance race foils like the Moses W800, for example, which is a very high aspect small wing, which is designed to go fast. And there you do start noticing the drag a little bit. Whereas, like I said, on larger wings, larger foils, they drag more than the Mast does. So you won't notice a performance difference on that. Yeah, I hope other people are realizing that maybe the old video is done. I'll just carry on just to get the video done. So one reason also it could be that the ventilation resistance is so good on this is the other cool factor on the Mast, which is the soft trailing edge. So I'm going to come up to the camera here and sort of show you guys that again. If I push on here, you should be able to see that I can actually push in the trailing edge. The trailing edge is soft. So which means I can run my hand up and down here without worrying about it. I can also smack my hand and put really hard. And it's not going to damage me. Also, if I do something like that, it's not going to damage the trailing edge. If I did that with the carbon Mast, I would have now ended up with a curb cut out or broken off on there. So this makes it really safe. And I also have a feeling that it sort of stops the ventilation from propagating down towards the glider. So when I've been trying to force it to ventilate, and also when I'm breaching the wings, pushing really hard, I still actually didn't manage to get like a proper full ventilation on this Mast. So that made me extremely happy. The next question I get asked quite a bit is, how does it compare weight-wise to other Masts? So first of all, this with the small plate here and the Moses adapter on it weighs 1.680 kilos, so 1,680 grams. Just for reference, the Moses 82 is 1.8 kilograms. The Moses 91 is also just about 1.6 kilograms, which is, however, it's a lot thinner and it's a lot more flexible than this. If you compare it, for example, to most aluminum masts in this length, they are all over 2.5 kilos. If you take the Indiana 90 centimeter mast, you take an Axis and so on, you're all over 2.5 kilos essentially with the bottom plate attached. So this is quite light. Yep, definitely cool if Kyle can find out about if the ventilation resistance is in part down to having a flexible trailing edge. That would be a really good thing to know. Michael Hooker is asking, where can we buy it? You can basically go to projectcedrus.com and you can order one there directly from Kyle. Again, it's a custom mast, so you can order it in any size you want and with the adapters you want. And at current US dollar exchange rates, it pretty much costs the same as any other carbon mast. It's not actually that much more expensive. And if you realize that you never really have to replace it, every time you change onto another foil, you just change your adapter, and that saves you quite a bit of money. We're going to buy need an adapter for an mobile and a gong. I think Kyle has a gong adapter on his website. If you look on his website, he actually has a whole list of adapters available for his mast. All right. Right, let's talk a little bit about the construction a bit more. So you can sort of see here, you can sort of see the two different sort of colors. You've got this lighter gray area and the darker areas. That lighter gray area is the actual block or a carbon mast part, the actual thing. It's a nice sort of big sort of box shape. It's hollow. It's capped off by steel, let's call them wedges or ends here. So it's got the same one on basically the plate side. And it's hollow. So if you do actually do something really stupid and you manage to detach your foil from your board, the mast will float, and if you've got a big front wing on there, the whole system will float and not sink, which is pretty cool. The one thing about having a hollow mast, just like on the aluminum masts, is that the sort of singing noise of the foil, not the whine, but the actual just singing noise of the foil, is amplified by the hollow body. So you sort of hear that a bit louder on the masts. Yep, on the durability side, this is Podworld has said, I'm pretty sure that this can take a large beating. I've not been super nice with this. This has been sort of bouncing around the inside of my car. Yep, I walk across reef quite a bit. And yeah, and I've actually, you know, I've done tests where I've hit this against things to see how much basically the soft trailing edge and the soft leading edge can take. And yeah, nothing. Not even managed to like rip a part out of it. And Kyle just said the soft edges can dampen vibration, which is probably right. It's a very smooth ride, even though it's a little bit louder through the water because basically hollow body in water just is sort of like a guitar. It makes more noise. Ooh. Thank you, Kevin Opar. And yeah, so, but on a performance side, you don't really notice it. It's just, it is louder. So some of you guys wanted to see, so how easy it is to change over adapters. So I'm just going to do it a little bit quickly. Just the Moses adapter, 2 screws in. That brings me to the point of hardware. Kyle delivered mine with stainless steel, you know, M8 screws with Allen key sockets. Yeah. Now, as I'm setting this up, I'm just basically putting the screws in, tightening those up, those 2 M8s. You sort of have to make sure that it's lined up properly. It is possible to screw it on slightly crooked if you're not careful. Yeah, so always make sure that you line it up and have a look at it and make sure that the adapter is on 100% straight. I've had it on crooked. It doesn't make a huge performance difference, not even that much louder. I'm just a stickler for it. Just making sure that it's sitting perfectly straight before you tighten up the adapter. So that's basically the adapter is on there. I'm gonna take it off and then put one of the other ones on there. This is the point where I should have actually maybe taken my electric screwdriver, which I normally have at the beach. This would be going a bit quicker. I'm just happy that the sound is still working, unlike on the last stream. So that's it off. So let's put on the north one. Just so I don't have to constantly look for my screws, I've actually just put on little nuts on the bottom so it keeps the screws in. Again, you just pop that on. Tighten the screw. Again, making sure that, sorry guys, making sure that it lines up. Okay, and that's on. Now it's ready to put a north foil on there. Now, about the adapters, there is a small caveat, which basically is you will not be able to put it on most of the foils in the exact same position as on the fuselage as the standard mast, essentially because you're going to have to make room for the adapter. So you can actually see, for example, here on the north, the plug is sitting a couple of centimeters farther forward on the mast, which means that the mast is sitting 3 centimeters farther back on the fuselage. It's the same thing here on the Moses. Sort of when that's on, it's about 2.8 centimeters farther back. So it does change the ride dynamics slightly, but not that noticeable. The only time you could possibly run into some trouble there is if your tracks are already quite far forward and you're already riding your foil at the back of the tracks. You're going to miss those couple of centimeters. So when you're ordering your adapter from Kyle, you should ask him about that, if we can reduce the offset or if there's any other option for that. For me, that wasn't a problem on any of my boards. The tracks are more or less in a decent place where I had more than enough play. And actually, for example, I was quite happy on that because with the Moses 1000 and the Moses 800 wings, I need to go all the way to the front of my tracks and use the extra holes in the Moses mast to go even farther forward to get it in the right position as it's on the kite fuselage. So having extra 3 centimeters on the adapter actually was cool, so I didn't actually have to do anything special. I could just move it to the normal front position, and it was already those 3 centimeters farther forward that I have to normally put in using extra holes on the Moses plate. So in some cases that really helps. Being farther back on the fuselage usually makes for a more sort of turny ride, but I didn't actually feel like a major difference on most of the foils I was riding, because that difference takes a bit more distance going back. You have to look through the comments again. Any other questions? Kyle's discussing it here again. We talked about the lengths. So once you have the adapter on, depending on which adapter, this 85 is closer to 90. For example, now with the north on there, if I'm measuring from the board, I'm actually at 87.5. So from 85, so it's 2.5 centimeters more. And for example, the Moses adapter is slightly taller, and that's how we end up closer to 90 centimeters. Quick release bases. That's all questions for Kyle. Masts are fully sealed. Yeah, as Kyle was saying, some people ask me, does water get inside? Nope, they're completely closed up, and I haven't gotten any water into my mast. All right, stiffness for sup and surf. That is amazing on this mast. Most people that know me already know that I used to prefer aluminum masts, if I could get them, for surf foiling and subfoiling, especially in larger waves, because I really wanted that control. Most of the carbon masts are a bit flexible, and when you're wanting control, especially when you don't have a wing or a kite or windsurf sail to hang on to, when you're just on the wave by yourself, any sort of delay or weird movement, especially on any wave that's bigger than shoulder high on a foil, it's harder to control. So that's why I was always preferring to use thicker aluminum foils, foil masts, because they gave me more control. That wasn't until I got this. This was the first long carbon mast, which was more stiff than any of the aluminum masts I was using, and obviously a lot lighter. So it gave me the same amount of control that I would have had with, for example, the 19 millimeter axis mast or the Indiana, with a massive reduction in weight, which again makes it all a bit more direct. Okay, any other questions? Okay, no. All right, let's get to sort of applications. Again, I was riding this with surf foiling, kite foiling, wing foiling, which is the thing I do most of the time now, and so on. And for most normal use cases, free riding, jumping, surfing, wave riding, aggressive wave riding, it shines through amazingly well. I wouldn't really say that this is a mast for racing. There's a reason why the racing masts cost so much money. They are thin and super stiff, but they cost about 2 times as much as one of these. And again, those are registered. For wind foiling, which is the one thing I couldn't really try because not sure when Kyle will ever do Tuttle adapters for those. But I'm sure this mast will work very well. On a stiffness, if I compare it, for example, to the Moses windsurfing masts, which are a lot thicker, it had a very similar stiffness to that on my tests, plus it's lighter. Because, for example, the Moses windsurfing masts have a wood core, and this is hollow. What size I recommend for wind foiling? For wing foiling, that's a matter of taste. For wing foiling nowadays, I tend to use as long as I can get away with. So I'm actually quite happy with this length. However, for more shallower spots, when we're wave riding here, for example, on our North Shore, like in spots like Mahanicho and so on, it can get a bit sketchy. If you crash in the wave, this is too long. So, for example, on those reef breaks, I would prefer to have, a 70, 75 centimeter max mast, because that'll just be a lot safer for when I screw up. But for jumping and going fast and being able to really heel over when winging, being closer to 90 centimeters is really, really good. Most of my other wing foil setups, I use masts like 82, 85 centimeters. And I actually prefer having a little bit extra length, especially for jumping and freestyle. Okay. All right. Okay. We're approaching the half an hour mark in 5 minutes. It's pretty much as long as I wanted to make this video. Did I notice that some wings rode better with the stiffer mast? Yeah, actually all of them. That is, at least for me, if I have more control and I can push the wings harder, for me, it's a better ride. For example, when you're riding wings which have winglets, those typically don't like breaching. So when you carve really hard on the wave and you breach the tip, you have to push quite hard to recover from that. So if you don't keep up the pressure, the wing will ventilate completely and you'll crash. And having the stiffer mast was cooler because I could actually still breach on those wings and basically recover better because the mast was stiffer and there was less chance of the ventilation propagating down the wing. Yep, Andres. I have basically tried them with the kite and the surf fuselage. I have not tried it with the windsurf fuselage because that's a different attachment. And it worked really, really well. Kyle's asking about the 900 Moses fuselage and the 710. Kyle, the 900 is the windsurf fuselage. And that has a longer plug and different screw positions because that's the wind foil setup. The 710 is what we use for winging and for surf foiling. And that is the same head also as the 647 kite fuselage. I heard a rumor that possibly that might change down the road with Moses, that they might go for a single system. That's just a rumor. Okay, so are there any more questions? If not, I will just basically sum up. So, do I like this? Oh yeah, I really do. It has basically, especially for me when I test different foils, it takes out a variable, because normally when you're testing different foils, you're testing the whole system. It's the mast, the fuselage, the wing. And really what I really like to know on a lot of the foils is how alone is the glider responsible for the performance and the feel of the whole foil. So when you're using the same mast and comparing two different gliders, so two different foils in that sense, you get a much better sense of the foils, because it's actually quite different when you have a different mast, because the mast could be more flexible, the mast could be torsioning more, flexioning more, the profile could be different, like one profile could be more prone to ventilation, so you can't push it as hard than the other, whereas if you're using the exact same mast, same length, on two different foils, you can really then pick out which of those differences really come from the foil itself, the actual glider part of the foil. The stiffness of this is amazing. Anybody who I've given this to try and even just held it in their hands already are amazed by how stiff it is, especially compared to its lightness. You have, again, a choice of different plates and your different adapters. So if you really want a one setup mast for your different foils, it is definitely the way to go forward. So again, if you want one, basically go to projectcedrus.com and you can order one from Kyle. Just remember, when you're ordering one, take into account that the adapter positions can shift the mast position on the fuselage. So taking that into account. And also that if you're looking for a very specific length, take into account the actual adapter length and the plate length, because 85 centimeters means the actual mast length without the plate or the adapter. So if you want exactly 85 centimeters or shorter a little bit, then I would say go for an 80 centimeter mast. So by the time you have the plate and the adapter on there, you're closer to that length. Okay. So thanks for watching. Remember, if you like the content on the channel, subscribe, click the subscription button and click the bell button so you get notified every time there's new content. And yeah, rock on. Stay tuned. Tomorrow I will be talking about the new Moses W950 mast And the day after, I will be talking about my two favorite Moses wings at the moment, which are the W800 and the W1000. Thanks for watching. See you on the water. Rock on.